Good morning. It's July 25th. Um, I want to do a video uh, on three different topics, and in mathematics you have a set of things like a circle, a set of a circle. A circle is within that circle is this set of space, let's say, and if another circle or two other circles are overlapping that circle, they have common area to them, subsets of each other. And I'm going to call them intersections right now. The intersection of three things: the intersection of the new feminist movement, the postmodern feminist movement that we have here in the Americas today and in Europe, um, abortion, and the Me Too movement. So, feminism in general, the abortion, and Me Too movement. Okay. I'm going to start with the Me Too movement, I think. Actually, I had all this planned out, but I never take notes. So, what I don't like about the Me Too movement. All right. First of all, I'll get right to the nitty gritty. Things that no one should like about the Me Too movement, without question, is there is no justification and no legitimate reason. Listen, if there's a woman in Hollywood, an actress, that gives a guy head, maybe is coerced into it, for a $250,000 spot in a movie, right? Or a $20,000 spot in a movie. And she comes back 15 or 20 years later, fuck her. Because these feminists, they believe in prostitution, right? They're all into prostitution. Oh, prostitution is a legitimate career now. That's what that was, all right? Maybe if she comes back the next day and says, I was coerced and I'm a young girl or a young woman, like Bill Clinton, when he was 57 or 55 and she was just moved out of her bedroom with her rock and roll or not rock and roll, what's her name? Her I don't know, boy band posters on the wall. Monica had her fucking boy band posters on the wall the day before she was manipulated by a 55-year-old pig, 18-year-old kid, and an 18-year-old is a kid to me. A 25-year-old is a kid to me. Not at 45, but at 57. So I'm Bill's age. That's a fucking kid. Like I said in another video, where was her father? But anyway, but anyway, these feminists, they can't complain about shit that they agreed to for a large amount of money in a business transaction 15 fucking years ago. I'm sorry. I'm not a Weinstein fan. Get the bastard. He's a fucking asshole. Get them guys. But don't broad brush us, because that's bullshit. So anybody who comes forward and cries wolf about something that happened 15 years ago, you better have DNA and a video, and you've better been a minor or something, because these witch hunts are insane. That's number one. Number two is date rape. And I tell you what, if I had a son today, and this is the truth, this is just my truth, and maybe a parent could agree with me. If I had a son under these conditions, that was a regular guy, 17-year-old, going to college, liked girls, was, a outgoing, spirited lad, and who had an eye for women, which is about probably, 75% of us. And then there's the 20% that just can put it out of their mind, and the 5% that are looking at men, or 10%, whatever, I don't know. But anyway, so I wouldn't send my son to a college today. I wouldn't trust it. Because when I was in high school and college, And I lifeguarded at the Jersey Shore in the 70s and the 80s as a teenager and in my 20s, sitting on a lifeguard stand, you know, going to the Osprey Hotel and Bar, Leggett's Sandbar, the Main Street Saloon, Jimmy Burns Seaguard Inn, the Ship Wheel, Park Place, the places in Asbury where Springsteen played, Gin Mills, and looking at bikinis on the beach, and gin mills by night and bikinis by day. And I'm going to tell you something, back then, and there were bad men. There were always a few bad men, but not many. Like I said before, the DJs were the fucking bad guys back then. Guys like whatever, opportunists. You know what I considered a bad man in a bar? I considered a bad man, a bad guy, a guy who waited for the vulnerablest, overly intoxicated girl at the end of the night. That's a bad guy. That's a bad guy. But the guy who's had 7 beers, blowing a 0.15 on the DUI Richter scale, and a girl who's had 5 beers and is blowing a 0.15 on the Richter scale, and they have goo-goo eyes, and all these beach houses we had, they went home together at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And whatever they did, whatever we did, we had fun. We weren't worried about her waking up the next day and changing her mind and deciding that first she decides to fuck the guy. I got to be frank, or let him have intercourse with her or whatever, And then she might get a call from mom or something, and mom's mad at her. Back then they didn't cry foul. They owned their own shit. Today, these women, they don't even own their own shit. They don't own their own responsibility for sleeping with guys in college. Date rape. There are date rapes, I would imagine. There's those drugs that I hear of, those ones that put women to sleep. I couldn't even understand that. Why the fuck, excuse my French, why the hell, what could possibly attract a man to having sex with an unconscious woman? Maybe some creepazoid, really out there fucking guy. But a 22-year-old, that ain't gonna happen. I mean, to strategize that, not anything, nothing I ever would even remotely had a whisper of. Apparently, it's a thing that happens. I'm shocked, but nothing shocks me really anymore. So I wouldn't send my son to college because I don't want some screwed up little girl who gets her panties in a lather with a little guilt trip or gets caught by mom crying foul on a 19-year-old boy, a promising 19-year-old man who's got all his hopes and dreams in front of him. And at 19, he has that. And at 19 in one day, the college boots him because of political correctness. And a year later, after spending $30,000 or $40,000 and publicly humiliated, he either gets off or he gets convicted of a crime that ruins his entire life and sends him to jail for many, many years. All because he got a piece of ass that wanted him to have that piece of ass. That shit, you know why it happens? I know it happens because it can. That shit shouldn't be allowed to happen. Due process, not he who shouts the loudest, like this Me Too movement. That's why I don't like the Me Too movement. Because the law covers all this shit that those women are whining about. There's laws for these things. What they're saying in the Me Too movement is, we want to make so much fucking noise, we're so bitter, that even though there are laws, we want it to be more vindictive. We want to make a statement for our victimhood. Yay, aren't we happy little girls? I just talked about that in the other one. You just watch their faces. Beautiful young lady walking down the street during that terrible shooting in Fort Lauderdale area, down in Key West on the, those protests against guns. And 35-year-old attractive young lady walking down the street carrying a sign. I had my NRA hat on. She made the worst gestures to me. Horrible gestures. And you know what I said? I wasn't close enough to her to for her to hear me, so I just mouthed it. I said, I'm sad 4 times before she figured it out. I'm sad for you because you're caught up in it. It's horrible. But anyway, so that's my thoughts on the Me Too movement. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's immature. It's anti-American. It's anti-rule of law. It's mob mentality. It's despicable victimhood. It's everything bad. It's envy. It's bitterness. It's sin. In a Christian sort of way, it comes back to being a character defect that they want to shout out at the world. Look at me. I'm angry. Poor, poor, pitiful me. Dolly Parton sang that song. So that's that. Abortion. Like I've said in another video, I watched a video of an ultrasound of probably a 5-month developed human being with I didn't look close enough to decide if it was a male or female pre-birth infant, but it was at least in this, I would say, the latter part of the second trimester. And I watched it go like this when the abortion doctor on this ultrasound stuck the sharp, they call them sharps in the medical profession. When the doctor stuck the sharp into this 6-month-old infant to end its life in the womb, I'm going to give you my profile. The child went like this. Just like that. Like this. You're disgraceful. You want to know what I think of abortion? Keep your labias together and keep your fucking legs together. You're so selfish. It's so pathetically selfish. Because if you don't want to keep your labia and your legs together, and you don't want to use other protection, which especially in our youth, and I will gladly admit that condoms are a big timing fuck up, not to put a pun on it. Condoms kind of suck, The condoms don't work. You know why condoms don't work? Because unless you're 50 years old, nobody puts them on in time. I'm sorry, that's the problem. They're awkward, they're kind of icky, and maybe they work, but they're not used because it's too emotionally difficult for that young couple in that moment to worry about that. So I hate to say it, but keep your labia and legs closed and figure something else out, guys. Because the abortion is not an option. And I'll tell you why the abortion is a despicable option. First of all, I saw a video of a 5-month-old child in its mother's womb screaming silently, a silent scream, like a smothering, like a helpless, lonely, torture, screaming for mom, trying to make waves in her stomach to save that child. Help me, mommy. Help me. Don't let them do this to me. Look what they're doing to me. That's what the kid did. I'm telling you. And there was no denying it on the video. You sons of bitches. And the worst part about you selfish feminist abortion bitches is that the reason you don't have the kids is because, and we all know this, it's just no, it's unspoken, because it's my baby, my body. It's my baby. My baby. I'm trying to be ridiculously sick like you are. And if I can't have my baby, you can't have my baby. So I'll kill it rather than put it up for adoption. And that's the only reason that women don't put babies up for adoption, because they don't, it's a sentimental thing. They don't want their offspring, their genetic, their child, their daughter, their son, their baby, to be given to somebody else that they don't know. They'd rather have it scream silently in their womb and get it off the table. You know, and then they say women's right to choose, because she's the cargo ship for a sperm cell and an egg, 50-50. But she's the cargo ship. I own half the cargo. If I own half the cargo on that ship, then why does she have the right to toss it off into the deep? Tell me that. You know, it's all fucking bullshit. It's selfishness and evil. There's places for abortion, but in a civilized world, it's not reveled in. Kill a baby today, they say. On these proud feminists have gotten so disgustingly pitiful. Baby, kill a preborn baby today. It's our right to choose. I'm so proud. I had 3 abortions. Close your legs. Period. And if you want to hang around with men that like women, that you like the guy, make some decisions. Put on your big girl grown-up pants. And take the plunge or don't take the plunge, ladies. It's a two-way street, you know? So, the world according to Joe, I'm sorry. No bullshit here, you know? I love how they say it's the right to choose. What do you think that kid would say? Hey, hello there, young thing. I was wondering, you know, you're 5 months along, and, you know, I'm not getting along with him. It was a mistake, or we just broke up, or we're too young, or I got to go to college, or dad's mad at me, or whatever your reason. Hello, little Johnny or Jane. I have a decision to make. I'm alive. I'm a live human being, but you're not yet, because you haven't breathed air. You just breathe air through my circulatory system. You're essentially a what do they call that? You know, you're co-joined with my circulatory system, attached to me, so I can breathe you. Every breath I take is your breath, Johnny or Jane. They don't want to think that way. Oh, well, it hasn't gotten out of the soup yet, so it mustn't be alive. No. Every breath you take, Mom, every single breath you take ain't your breath anymore. What do you think of that? I tell you what, you don't believe me? Put your head underwater until you die and see what happens to that 5-month-old baby inside you. Think that kid's going to live? No. You're supposed to be taking care of it and protecting it, you disgraceful women. Disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Groupthink. We're doomed. We're gonna reap what we sow if we don't change this. And I'm not a holy roller, you know. I'm spiritually inclined, and I can see over horizons, and I believe in cause and effect, and retribution, and everybody pays the price eventually. But the left is so slick that by the time the price is paid, they're blaming somebody else for the burden. So those two things, the METO movement, abortion, the feminist movement, I have an idea for those women if they're so mad at us white guys and us conservative men. Maybe they should just abort. Here's an idea, and I've already seen it on the internet. It's happening already. These crazy progressive women, they're aborting male babies because they hate their own men. That's going to go over well in 50 years. You might as well be calling your husband Muhammad. That's that's your lot in life. You destroy us, somebody's going to fill the vacuum. You're going to get a rag on your fucking head. And if you say anything wrong, they'll just beat you to death. And then the girls will, they'll get in line when the guy down the street's wife goes out without her shabab on, or has an affair with, Hector, or Muhammad number two, and Muhammad number two rapes her. Let's say this is your Muslim countries. Let's say Muhammad number one lives at on Mockingbird Lane, like the Monsters did, I think. And around the corner at the Addams family's Muslim house, Muslim man number two rapes your wife because she went out without her shabab on or her fucking hat or whatever the hell it is. And then husband number one finds out. And husband number two or man number two raped the woman. He don't give a fuck because she went out without her scarf on. And you know who husband's blaming? Not the rapist, the wife. Then they'll beat her to death or stone her, or cut her clitoris off, which they do now all the time, so she can't find pleasure. So you keep on going right down the path you're going, girls. You keep heading where you're heading, you're going to get what you get. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a horrible world. I'm not a pessimist, but I'm a little bit of a pessimist these days, because of the shrinking globe. Because in the old days, if your culture was an abomination, you could flee, like they flee to here, or like the our founders fled from Europe, from the United Kingdom that was suppressing them and not treating its people very well. But with the globalism, there's no place to flee to anymore. So we're going to end up having to either be enslaved forever, or have revolutions that protect us from tyranny and these horrible people. So anyway, it's not a bright outlook, but you know what? I see it, I talk about it, and I move on. It's sort of like I like to throw warning shots over people's bows. I told you so, Oh, by the way, I was treated very well by the man at the Marathon Library yesterday. I'd like to, if he, there's a chance he might see this, but I just want to tell him thank you for the pleasant treatment and getting me a new library card, sir. It was a pleasure seeing you yesterday. And with that, I didn't get into the feminist movement, but I got into it on another video that I just did, and it's pathetically immature. That's what it is. It's short-sighted, emotion-driven immaturity. So with that, have a wonderful day. Take care.